I am a wellness consultant with OhioHealth. So exercise physiologist by background, certified health and wellness coach. So I'm really excited to be here. I wanted to pop my camera on to say hi. I will turn it off during the presentation. I find it just a little less distracting as I present with you all. And if you do have questions, please don't hesitate to throw those in the chat box. I'll try to keep an eye to see if questions are coming in, but I'm happy to answer those as we go throughout or at the end of the session as well. And so there will be a few opportunities throughout to kind of take a moment to pause and think and even write some things down. So if you do have a paper and pen nearby or something to jot a few notes on, I'll give you a second if you want to grab something. Obviously, you don't have to. You can also just kind of think about it and come back to it at a later time. But I did want to preface that if you'd like to take some notes throughout, could be a really good opportunity to do so. All right, so before we dive in, I do want to take a moment to really think about this session and starting with the title. So developing your personal wellness plan. When I was thinking about this, I think it was the other day, probably after work, when most of my thoughts come around our sessions. I was thinking about the title and kind of breaking it down, almost word by word. So the first word, developing. Today, we'll start to create or think about what your wellness plan might look like. And when we use this word developing, right, it's something we're doing, it's an action, but it's also something that can change along the way if needed. And so I like to kind of preface, be flexible. We can have a plan, but as we all know very, very well, life is very unpredictable. So having something to work toward, but keeping some flexibility around that can be a really supportive strategy. So if we move down the title, right, your personal wellness plan, and I really want to emphasize the personal part of this, right? This has to come from within. We can take what we know, right? We know that exercise has its benefit, stress management, eating nutritionally dense foods, all of that stuff. We can take that information and we can use it to help us formulate our plan, but the directive and the motive of the plan has to come from within ourselves. That's what's going to propel us and keep us moving forward. And then finally, I want to look at the word wellness. So what does wellness mean to you? And this will be our first kind of opportunity to really pause and think about or write down what comes to mind when I say the word wellness. And if anyone wants to chat in what wellness means to you, or when I say the word wellness, what comes to mind, I can read off some of the chats. You don't have to, voluntary, but yeah, being well, being healthy, right? And maybe feeling my best. Yeah. And I ask this question because wellness can mean something different to all of us. It's kind of like the word health or being healthy. Yeah, so mentally healthy, taking care of yourself, self-care, no aches and pains, mind, body, and soul in sync, being well in mind, body, and spirit, happy. Yeah, so being conscious of being healthy, exercise, eating a balanced diet, self-care, right? Wellness is going to look and feel different to all of us. And I'll pause to say thank you for chatting in. It's always lovely when we can have the conversation, and maybe it's exercise, maybe it's nutrition, hydration, gratitude. Maybe there's a social aspect for you, or sitting down at the table for dinner, or perhaps career or financial wellness. Yeah, positive outlook. Right? We can really think outside the box and really ask ourselves, what does being well mean to me? And I think it's something to think about because sometimes we tend to kind of get tunnel vision where we might forget, like, yeah, this is my plan. So often we're thinking about others, but for a moment, we can kind of think about ourselves and ask ourselves, how do I want to show up a year from now? Knowing that how we show up is going to impact how we interact with others, right? So it trickles into the space of others as well. And the statement of how do I want to show up a year from now, that's a pretty powerful thing. It's a pretty powerful vision or plan. And so we'll talk about that a bit more as we go throughout our session today. The other thing I kind of want to point out, and the message I'm really hoping to share, is one of autonomy, right? You are in charge of your well-being. And sometimes there are things that are in our control, and sometimes there are things that are not. And sometimes that means reaching out for other resources to help support our wellness plan, right? And that's why those resources are there. But when it comes to our personal wellness plan, believe in yourself, like tune into your strengths, and we'll talk about that. Have confidence, show yourself compassion, right? And I know every time I'm with you all, which is so wonderful, I kind of harp on this compassion thing, right? But we are human and we're not going to get it, quote unquote, right all of the time. Sometimes it's due to things within our control. Sometimes it's due to things outside of our control. But we learn, we grow, we consider, right, practicing, continuing to believe in ourselves and our ability to move toward whatever our wellness plan looks like. All right, so who would have thought a title had so much to it? All right, so diving into our session a bit more, our learning objectives, our goals for today, to first learn what a wellness vision is and how creating a wellness vision can help propel us toward our best self. So wellness vision and wellness plan, I'm kind of using those interchangeably. We'll look at our top motivators, strengths, and supports. And then we'll take some time to create our own wellness vision and 3-month plan to provide actionable steps to get you closer to that vision. All right, so that's kind of a lot. We'll break it down. First, what is a wellness vision, or what is a wellness plan? So a wellness vision, it tells us where we want to be going, right? Going back to that question, how do I want to be showing up a year from now? It's easy to say, I want to be doing this, or I want to be doing that, right? I'm going to be going to the gym, or I don't know, that's a common one that I hear quite often. But a wellness vision is more than a goal, right? It's how do I want to show up in the world? It puts into words what we want as our desired future self. It gives us a sense of direction. So it's really a foundation for planning. It's hard to know what changes we want to make if we don't know where we're going. And once we know where we're going, we can kind of work backwards. So a few slides in here, if you've attended some of the previous sessions, are going to look very familiar. I think there's 2 or 3. And we've talked about this a little bit in some of these previous sessions, kind of working backwards from this wellness vision or this wellness plan. So today we're really focused on the plan. And, it's kind of like getting in the car and starting to drive and hoping you get there, but you don't really know where there is. So this wellness vision gets us from point A to point B. Sometimes it's a windy road. Sometimes we hit detours, just like we do on the road. But we keep going, and we'll talk about strengths and motivators, and that's going to be what keeps us moving forward. So a wellness vision or a wellness plan provides the energy that moves you forward in the stages of change, which we'll look at here shortly. Right? And again, it doesn't mean it's going to be a linear path all of the time, and not usually the case, but if we have something clearly defined, we know what we're working toward. And so, quite often I'll hear, I want to be healthier, or I want to start exercising. which, wonderful, but we need to be a little more specific, right? That's not very clear. So we don't know exactly what that means to us, right? We go back to that definition of what does wellness mean to me? And then finally, a wellness vision can be a really powerful tool because it connects you with your best experiences, your core values, your strengths. And if we're trying to make a change that doesn't align with our values, then we're probably not going to go very far in making that change. And so one thing with this vision that I love is that it focuses on those strengths. It focuses on, the things on our side, right? It's not what we don't do well. It's not where we've messed up in the past. It's what have we done well? What's worked for us in the past? How can we take that information and use it now? It's kind of like data. How can we take it and make the best of it? All right. So in case I've not sold you on a wellness vision yet, a wellness vision, we kind of have a little bit of guidance. It should be grounded. So building on current success. Again, we're looking at that success piece. We're not stressing about what we're not doing right. We're not stressing about what's not going well. It should be bold. So stretching the status quo. And this one can be a little bit of a balance, because in some of these previous sessions, and again, you'll see this come up later, we've talked about this idea of less is more, lowering the bar, giving ourselves permission to work towards something that we know we can accomplish. Because quite often we raise the bar maybe a little higher than what either we're ready for or higher than what the season of life is going to allow us to achieve. And so it's this balance of kind of lowering that bar, but also stretching the status quo, because how will we grow and learn if we're not challenging ourselves, right? And sometimes that may feel a little uncomfortable, but we're challenging ourselves, we're learning, we're growing, we're moving forward toward this vision. So it should be desired what you truly want. Again, this is your wellness vision. It's your definition of wellness. So come back to that. It should be stated as if it's already true. And I've got a couple of examples, and you'll hear and be able to read how even the written language is stated as if it's happening now, right? Having that belief in yourself that you can do it. And then it may be, involving many stakeholders. So what does support look like? What does your environment look like? For some people, sharing their wellness vision with close family or friends is helpful, and others would prefer to, keep it to themselves. And so it's knowing what works best for you. All right. So as we kind of think about our wellness vision, I want to take a moment to talk about the stages of change. Oh, wonderful. Yes, I like this idea of a wellness vision. Glad I'm not alone. It is, it was something that I was introduced to a while ago, and the more I learn about it, the more I can see it become a helpful tool, right? Giving that sense of direction. So thank you for chatting in. I'd also love to hear, is anyone familiar with the stages of change? I know it's talked about in a wide range of settings. And so maybe we've heard it, maybe we know it. We'll go through it, but I was just kind of curious. Yeah. Okay. Thank you for chatting in. So the stages of change are one part of the trans-theoretical model, often abbreviated as TTM. So this behavior change model looks at an individual's readiness to pursue a healthier behavior. And really, this model is composed of multiple things. The stages of change is just one piece. Quite often, it kind of is talked about as the overarching thing, but it's really just one piece, to this model. So with the stages of change, I do want to mention, this is not the end all be all. Perhaps some of this applies to you, perhaps some of it doesn't, but it is one model that could potentially provide some insight into forward movement toward our goals, or provide some insight into maybe why we don't feel motivation or connection to a goal or a change. So again, it's just something to consider. And I usually say this at the beginning of my session, so I'm going to add it in here. Always, any session that I'm offering, taking what speaks to you, and you can come back to what doesn't speak to you right now, or maybe, in this season of your life, it's not applicable, and that's okay too. We kind of collect information and then we use it in a way that fits for us, or that's going to be supportive for us. So as we look at the stages of change, we'll dive into each one here in a second. The thing I want to say is that we can be in different stages for different behaviors. Maybe I'm in pre-contemplation for one behavior and I'm in maintenance for another, right? We're not going to be doing everything all the time. We are human and we have 24 hours in a day. The next thing I want to say is it's not always going to be this smooth transition from one stage to the other in this perfect circular motion or transition, right? We may jump around with different behaviors. Maybe I've been maintaining a behavior for a while, something in life happened. Exercise, right? Maybe I was exercising for a while and then here we are, 2 years ago, fitness center shut down. And then maybe I have been off for a while. I may go back to contemplation or I may go right back into action. So again, it's not always this perfect circular transition from one stage to the next. And that is okay. That is the reality of life. So as we look through our stages of change, the first one here, pre-contemplation. So really no intention on changing a behavior. And there could be a couple different reasons. We might not be aware that the behavior needs changed, right? We don't know what we don't know. That's okay. Again, we're human. We're not going to know it all of the time. Maybe we're aware, but at this point, we don't see any risks associated with the behavior, or perhaps we simply don't want to change, or maybe we just don't feel ready, right? And that is okay too. That next stage is contemplation. So perhaps now we're, aware that there could be some benefits of changing. But if we think about kind of that positive, negative, or cost benefit analysis, maybe the costs still feel that they outweigh those benefits of changing. This may feel confusing, or maybe I feel stuck, like, I know I should quote unquote do this, but I don't really want to. I should exercise, but I don't enjoy it. So again, it's a place to give ourselves compassion. I think it's a really good place to just be curious without judging ourselves. Maybe we just kind of wonder or start to dive in a little bit. It's kind of like a mystery, right? We start to dive in like, what's going on here? Maybe I'm not looking for anything specifically, but even just giving yourself permission to slow down and actually think about it, you may have some things come up. This could last for months or years. And again, that's okay too. But if we can start to put some energy or curiosity into the behavior, again, maybe we will kind of figure out what is keeping us here. As we move through those stages of change, we have preparation. So here we're starting to think about taking action. Maybe we're starting to take small steps or gathering information, perhaps preparing support if we need support from family, friends, coworkers, spouse, environmental support, the space that I spend my time in. So here we're starting to think about and perhaps take a little bit of action. And I think when we're in this contemplation stage, I'm going to go back a second, giving yourself permission to explore things that you've not tried or, paths that you've not taken. And sometimes they may be a path that works and sometimes they might not be. So we try again. And I go back to the exercise one, I have people very close to me that just do not derive joy from exercise. I went to school for exercise. I derive joy from exercise most days, but I'm human, not always motivated. So it's thinking outside the box. It's thinking, so what do I enjoy? I enjoy hiking, for this person. I enjoy being outdoors. So, okay, is that the route we need to go, right? That can still be exercise. So again, just kind of giving yourself permission to think outside the box and maybe expand some of our definitions. All right, so I think we're in action. We are in action now. We are maybe working on modifying the behavior. We're taking steps toward changing whatever it is. Again, it's not going to be perfect. We're going to learn along the way. And once we've taken action for, a period of time, now we're in maintenance. We're sustaining the behavior, the new behaviors possibly replace the old. And we're continuing to do this, whether it's day after day or week after week, depending on what the behavior is. And we're here, right? It's feeling good. Sometimes we hit those relapses. So maybe we fall back into old patterns of behavior. Maybe I went on vacation, or, life got busy, whatever it may be. But we can view these as opportunities to learn. So again, we bounce back in a different stage of change. Doesn't have to be at the beginning. We bounce back where we land, and we can keep moving forward. So it's kind of a lot to take in. I share this again in hopes that it can either help clear some confusion if anyone is feeling stuck or hesitant, or maybe even, affirm changes that you have made too. It's not always the need to change, right? We can have affirmation as well. All right, so now that we've kind of defined a wellness vision, we've looked at the stages of change that can impact behaviors that might be part of that wellness vision. I do want to give you a couple of wellness vision examples. And the thing I will say with these examples is they don't have to be this long. Because if you're looking at this, you're like, oh my goodness, I have to write a whole paragraph. Yours might be this long, but it might not be. So I'm going to read this here. So I have completely given up drinking soda, and I'm drinking at least 4 bottles of water per day. I am fueling my body regularly and not skipping meals. I am packing lunches and bringing food into work at least 3 times per week. I am walking for at least 15 minutes per day with my coworker and getting a minimum of 6,000 steps per day. I feel better about my overall health and well-being, and I am getting regular checkups at my doctor instead of ignoring my blood pressure. So a couple of things as we look at this wellness vision. Again, it's stated as if already true, right? I have completely given up. I am drinking at least 4 bottles of water. I am walking. I am packing my lunch. So we have that language in there. And that, to me, even just, hearing that is motivating in and of itself. We can also see kind of now knowing that our wellness vision is designed to really be kind of a year from now, we can imagine that this person is challenging themselves, right? Again, finding that balance. So I'm packing my lunches and bringing food into work at least 3 times a week, right? Not every day, not every meal. I'm walking at least 15 minutes per day and a minimum of 6,000 steps per day. So not an hour per day, right? But it's something. And so again, this is just an example. Your wellness vision does not have to include any of this. This is relevant to this individual person. All right, so I will show you one more example, and this one's even longer, so definitely, again, don't feel like you have to write a story. So this vision example, I am testing my blood sugar regularly, including 2 hours postprandial at least 1 time per day. I am tracking my blood sugars and sending the numbers to my doctor regularly. I attend all of my doctor's appointments and follow through with what my healthcare providers and I come up with as goals. I am taking my medication regularly and not skipping doses. I am walking for 10 minutes after all of my lunches at work. I am making better choices when I eat out most of the time. I am using a meal replacement shake in the morning as my breakfast meal to start my day. I am getting to bed by 11 p.m. and I am asleep by midnight using my established sleep hygiene routine. So there's a lot here. There's a lot to this wellness vision. For this individual, when I read this, I hear a lot of kind of that, we know what we should be doing, right? Taking our medications, knowing that supports our well-being. So we're taking that helpful information and we're making it fit into our lifestyle, right? So there was something in here. Yeah, I make better choices when I eat out most of the time, not perfection. Perfection does not exist. We're going for a supportive wellness change. All right. So the other thing I want to point out is if you are someone who, enjoys maybe getting crafty, your wellness vision does not have to be written out, or your, wellness plan. So here are a couple of examples. Maybe, bullet journals were a big thing at one point. You can draw, you can make your wellness vision however you want. So just to give you permission to, again, have fun with it and make it yours. All right, so from here, we're gonna start to take some time to dive into the pieces of our wellness vision. The next slide will slow down. I kind of want to introduce these questions first. So some questions you might ask yourself, what do I envision my health and wellness to look like 1 year from now? What words, feelings, and thoughts describe this vision? What motivators do I have that can help me achieve my vision? Or what strengths do I have? What challenges might I face while working toward my vision? And then what strategies might I use to help me along the way? And so kind of thinking about some of these questions, if you have a pen and paper nearby, oh yes, okay, I just saw a chat. I like the use of pictures, right? It's kind of fun, it's something different. So yeah, your wellness vision is yours. You have to make it your own. And this is a chart of the questions we just looked at. And so maybe it is a chart, maybe you kind of jot a few things down, but let's just start at the top. So thinking to yourself or writing a few words down, what do you visualize your health and wellness to look like 1 year from now? So I am still here. I will give some moments of silence to think and to write some things down. And you don't have to have this like perfected, filled in by the end of our time together. I will definitely be passing the PowerPoint slides along, and you can come back to it, right? You can come back to these questions, come back to the recording, come back to your vision. But just to kind of get us started and get us in this mindset. So from there, maybe we ask ourselves, what words, feelings, or thoughts describe this vision? Yeah, so try my best to be healthy, right? Right, because I think, all of us probably want to be healthy and well. Yeah, Yes. Oh, I love that. I just want to be a better me in a year than I am today. Right? That is inspirational. I love that. Yeah, so maybe if we look at that next question, what motivators do I have that can help me achieve my vision? So this is where we talked at the beginning. It has to come from within. You know, what are some of those intrinsic motivations that you have, right? And we just got to see some of them, right? I want to be a better me a year from now. I want to be healthy. Yeah, staying consistent in the gym. On top of mom duties, gosh, you could probably have a whole wellness vision for that in and of itself. That's quite a job. Right? Dedication, self-motivation. Yeah. So how can we get a copy of this slide? I will pass the slide along. So I think it will probably be able to be shared with you, but we can definitely confirm that at the end. And what strengths do you have that can help you achieve your vision? I love this question because I think so often we tend to focus on our weaknesses or what we need to be doing differently. Like, this is your time to take a moment to brag about yourself, write down those strengths, tune in and believe in yourself and what you can do. Right? We all have strengths. Yes. Okay. So question, how can loss motivate wellness changes? So let's see, loss. Okay. Thank you. I thought that's what we were going with loss, but I was actually about to ask for clarification. So losing a loved one or ability to walk. Yes. So, I would first say, let's go back to what your definition of wellness is. Maybe in this season, the definition of wellness is different than it might be in a different season of life. Maybe the definition of wellness right now is, working through a challenging time or working through a transition in life. And so maybe wellness changes are just giving yourself the time and space, or is it, an additional resource that can provide support to this challenging time. Right? Sometimes that may motivate us to make some changes. And sometimes we may need to give ourselves time and space to acknowledge however we're feeling, let those feelings show up, and then be able to kind of, move forward. And sometimes we can do that right by ourselves. And sometimes having that additional support, which is, I think on the previous slide, right, that extra support can be helpful. Yeah. And sometimes the motivation is, I want to be healthy for myself. I want to be healthy for my loved ones. Yeah, great questions, great insights.
Ms. Dorinda, did you have a question for us? You can feel free to unmute yourself and ask Erica.
Oh, thank you. I apologize. I didn't see the little hand.
No? Okay. Are we good to move on? Okay, Erica, I think you're good to move on.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, okay, so I saw your thanks. Yes. Gosh, I'm so sorry to hear about that. Yeah, that's tough. And so again, giving yourself permission to allow We go back to that flexibility that we talked about at the beginning. Allow our wellness to shift and morph and change as we need to, because we're humans and our life is going to shift and change and morph, within our control and outside of our control. So yes, but then having, that vision, and it can change, and that's okay too. Yeah. And so as we kind of move down here, what challenges might I face while working toward my vision, right? Unpredictable situations, right? Sudden changes within our lives, those can absolutely be challenges. What other challenges might we face? And we ask this question because sometimes if we can think about the challenges ahead of time, we're maybe a little more ready to face them if they show up. This question I always think is hard though, because there are so many possible challenges. And so I think if we can really tune into our strengths and our motivators, that's really is going to be what helps us move forward. And then what strategies might I use to help me achieve my vision? Again, is it sharing my vision or sharing some changes I want to make with those around me or close to me? Is it, having a vision board, what we saw earlier with the pictures? And then once we kind of collect all of these pieces, all of these thoughts, these notes, then we can craft our wellness vision. So I will give us a few moments if you want to write one out and then come back to it, a few hours later, or come back to it tomorrow, and reread it to be sure it still feels in line with the vision, that speaks to you. Or if you're drawing or creating a vision in some other way, maybe it's this weekend or just setting some time to work on it. I know when I've made my wellness vision, it's taken me some time, right? Maybe this is me personally too. I like to write it out. I like to give it some space. I like to come back to it and just reread it, make sure it still feels okay after I've given it a little bit of space and time to think. It's definitely not something I would want to rush you into. All right. So kind of as we continue moving on, and if we go back to strategies and just the recognition of the support around us, which we're seeing here, even within the chat is so absolutely, is huge and can really help us through various seasons of life. All right. So we've talked about this before. We have that wellness vision on the far right, where you want to be a year from now. And if we work backwards, once we have our wellness vision, then we set our goals to get there. We have habits we learn along the way. And if we work backwards from that, this is where we are, here and now. And so we're going to kind of work backwards a little bit and talk about SMART goal setting for just a second. When we're looking at those goals, we want to make sure our goals are supportive of our wellness vision. So we have our wellness vision written out, or maybe we'll come back to it. And then what is a goal that's going to get me there? So when I'm thinking about my goals, I'm probably thinking about like 3-month goals and then 6-month goals, giving myself time and space to change. So with our goals, we want to be specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and timely. So be specific. What am I working toward? If I want to start exercising, I want to be more specific than that. What does that look like? How many days a week am I going to do it? For how long? And we saw that example in some of the wellness visions of, I'm going to walk 15 minutes each day, or I'm going to do this 3 days a week. right? So be specific with those goals. That gives you that direction so you know where you're going. But once we write our goals, go back to your vision, go back to your goals, right? It's a little bit of back and forth. Make sure our goals are supportive of our vision. So does this goal support my wellness vision? Is this goal something I want to work on? My next favorite question, on a scale of 1 to 10, how confident am I that I can achieve this goal? And this requires us to maybe sometimes be a little more honest with ourselves than we want to be. If I'm like, I'm a 10, like, am I a 10? Maybe, but maybe if I think about it, I'm like, okay, now that I've stepped back, I've looked at my calendar, maybe I'm like a 4. So maybe I rewrite my goal, and that's okay. You can rewrite it. We want to really aim for a 7 to 10 on this scale, at least a 7 of confidence. And then again, what barriers might arise along the way? Same thing we did with that wellness vision. What challenges might I face? We can think about some. We're not going to think about all of them. There's going to be the unexpected. All right, this slide's repeat, and I do know that, and I did that on purpose. So from Atomic Habits, James Clear states, you do not rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. So if we go back to, I'm going to flip back just a second. Don't want to make anyone dizzy. If we go back, we have goals. So what this statement is talking about, it's talking about our daily habits. Our daily habits get us to our goals, which get us to our wellness vision. There we are. And so when we look at our goal, we then shift from the goal itself to the processes that are going to get us there. Current habits deliver current results. So we have to make a few changes, right? We're scaling this way down. So when it comes to our daily habits, there are a few strategies. Again, this is repeat. If this is your first session, perhaps this information is new to you. So wonderful either way. Some strategies might be tiny habits from BJ Fogg. So take a behavior or habit you want to change and make it tiny. This allows you to meet yourself where you are right now, right? Maybe it's a 2-minute rule. So taking the behavior you want to develop and scale it down to be done in 2 minutes. If you want to start cooking more at home, maybe it's just finding a recipe or getting the cutting board out. If I want to start walking every day, I get into the habit of putting my walking shoes on, right? Or laying my clothes out. I can build on that. Once I've mastered, all right, get home, walking shoes on, no brainer anymore, right? Now maybe I go for a walk, right? 5-10 minutes, and I build from there. Small wins lead to big results. So it may feel funny, it may feel silly to start with a small habit, but again, we can build from there. And this is, I believe, my last repeat slide. A short practice that you do every day is better than a long practice that you keep putting off until tomorrow. So a couple things with this slide, right? Giving yourself permission that it doesn't have to be perfect. If anyone is a perfectionist, I resonate with you. I hear you. I've restarted many things in my life because it's not been perfect. Right? And then we realize perfection does not exist. That itself can be a barrier, or it can feel overwhelming to get started too, kind of veering off the slide a little bit. If we're thinking about, what does wellness mean to me? What is my wellness vision going to look like a year from now? If I'm like, oh my goodness, I've got a lot of changes to make, right? Recognizing, for one, we're human. For two, step back, take a breath. We can break it down. We have a year to work on this. We're so often used to immediate results that this approach may feel strange. It may feel like I don't have time to wait for changes for a year. But also, I think as many of us know, a year sounds like a long way away. And here we are at the end of June of 2022. Like, oh my goodness, it flies by. And so maybe we try a different approach. All right. So I did leave a little bit of time for questions. Let me point out first, I have a variety of resources on here, some ones you've seen before, some additional resources on like at the bottom, the stages of change. Yes, okay, I was making sure that was all of them. The top is a podcast, so it dives into really the atomic habits. We have a couple of books on here and then a couple of websites. So I do try to include a variety of resource types, just knowing information resonates with all of us in all different ways and ways to access information. So yes, okay. To kind of summarize, right? Thinking about how do I want to show up a year from now? You know, can you come back to this, come back to the notes that you wrote down, the thoughts that you wrote down, and maybe you experiment with creating a wellness vision. Maybe we break it down into goals and break it down into habits. So again, showing yourself compassion along the way and being okay with modifying as needed. All right, so now I left time for questions or any other thoughts that you have. I do have the chat box up, so I'm happy to answer any questions that come up, or I'd love to hear from you too. Is there anything that jumped out at you in this session that you feel like, yeah, I might take that and experiment with it a little bit? And if not, that's okay too.
Thank you so much, Erica. Every time you present, I always take away so much from all of your content just to use in my personal and professional life. So thank you so much.
No, thank you all for having me. Let me get there we are. So see my camera back on. Yes, thank you. Yeah, tiny habits sounds very doable. Oh, I love that. So 12-week cycles instead of 1 year. And that can be a wonderful approach as well. Yeah, it's finding what works for you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for being
Thank you,
here.
Maria.
You know, I was always working out for almost 50 years, working out at the gym, walking 10,000 steps. I had all these goals. I was faithful. And in this season now, you know, I'm basically told, stop it, don't do it. But I've been doing 15 minutes, 5:30 and every single weekday morning of stretching faithfully. And that was the way I worked a wellness plan and bringing the lunch and eating healthy. So yeah, sometimes, you know, a person can gain weight and be less active, but still pursue healthy goals. So yeah, I really like, is my camera on?